patriarchy pushing passivity and dominance, feminism that often pushes independence and deconstruction, and few people asking what the original design really was. But Yahuwah, the Lord, doesn't leave his design buried under centuries of religious rubble. He sends someone to rebuild it, and his name is Yahusha, Jesus. The world had drifted far from the garden. By the time Yahusha arrived, Roman patriarchy ruled the land. Rabbinic traditions stacked burdens on men and women, but he came not to reinforce the distortion, but to restore the original design. He didn't do it by just writing a manifesto. He did it by walking it out. He taught women. He commissioned women to proclaim. He taught revelation through them. He honored their faith. He included them in his traveling ministry. He entrusted them with the news of the resurrection. And for more on this, you can see my video on the women Jesus discipled. Yahusha's genius was profound. In a culture that viewed women as unreliable witnesses, he flipped the narrative upside down by sending them with the most important testimony in all of humanity. He is risen. In a culture that silenced, dismissed, and controlled women, Yahusha did the opposite. The son of Elohim believed women were capable of learning, proclaiming, serving, leading, and testifying to the resurrection. Why would we settle for theology that puts women back in the corner? Yahusha did not come to reinforce hierarchy. He came to rebuild a family, and he rooted it in love. One body, many parts, all surrendered, all empowered, all image bearers. Acts 2 was the grand unveiling. The Ruach HaKodesh, Holy Spirit, fell not just on the 12, but on all who gathered, men and women, young and old, servant and free. And when onlookers marveled at what had happened, Kepha, Peter, stood up and quoted from Joel. And it shall come to pass in the last days, says Elohim, I will pour out my Ruach upon all flesh, and your sons and daughters shall prophesy. And on my servants and on my housemaidens I will pour out in those days of my Ruach, and they shall prophesy. Acts 2:17 through 18, quoting from Joel 2:28 through 29. They shall prophesy. The early called out assembly was not confused on whether or not women had a voice. They had already seen it. In Miriam, in Priscilla, in Junea, Philip's prophesying daughters, in the original Testament that had Devorah and Esther, and the blueprint that God laid out in the beginning, which was shared dominion. Women weren't just present, they were active. This wasn't just a cultural fluke or a temporary exception. The spirit of Elohim was poured out on all who gathered, without prejudice, without hierarchy, and without disclaimers. It wasn't Messiah who sidelined women. It was men, centuries later, who traded the Spirit's fire for institutional control. And somehow we're still debating on if women are allowed to speak. Spoiler alert, the tomb was empty and the women were speaking. So if you've ever been told to tone it down, sit it out, just support your man's ministry, this series is your permission slip, signed and sealed in crimson.